congratulations on your new album. How are you feeling about putting it out in all of this stuff that's happening around you?
Well, I recorded it. We recorded it in February and set the release date then. And of course, had no idea what the world had in plan for had in store for us. But it is what it is, and I'm happy to put it out now. I've gotten a lot of great responses from it, which has been really exciting for me. And a lot of people that have told me, that they were glad that I did it because they needed something to listen to.
Yeah, well, that's a fact. But it has been a long time coming for you, hasn't it? Because I mean, most people know you from the Toadies, but you weren't in that band since way back when. And
yeah, exactly. I never stopped making music. After the Toadies, I was signed to Geffen with a band called the Tomorrow People.
Right.
And I did that for a few years, and then we got dropped when Geffen got bought by Seagram's. And that was about the time I moved to New York City. I worked for Nile Rodgers. I was his Pro Tools guy. I love there's Pro Tools in the background. I'm a Pro Tools nut.
Cool. Well, that sounds fascinating. What exactly does that mean that you were working with Nile Rodgers doing Pro Tools? Because
I would show up, and whoever's in the studio that day, that's who I would be recording. And it would be like one day it was Run DMC, Michael Bolton. A bunch of legacy acts like that. We made an album with Duran Duran, and I was like his Pro Tools editor, recorder guy,
right?
Up until about 2005, which is when really the bottom fell out of the music industry, pretty much. Yep. And they really hit rock bottom, and then that's when I moved to LA.
Right.
But I never stopped making music. It just took different forms. I did some film music out here in LA. I worked at Sony Pictures for about 8 years, and now I do film audio restoration.
Oh,
work. Cool. I don't know if you ever seen an old movie and it says Color by Deluxe. I work at Deluxe, and
great.
Sound by Glenn Glenn. I work at the Glenn Glenn Sound Building, which is right here.
I'm familiar with all of those names from watching television back in the day.
Exactly. Yeah. You Sound by Glenn Glenn. You see it every day when you're watching. Whatever the
Beverly Hillbillies or something.
Beverly Hillbillies. Exactly. Yeah, that was all done right here in this building.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I just talked to a guy who was redoing or reimagining the soundtrack to Alfred Hitchcock's The Lodger movie, which came out in like 1927, and he was from Texas as well. And so there you go. I mean,
well, that's cool.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so I never stopped making music, and my collaborator Mitch, we had a band about 10 years ago, and worked on it for about a year, and it didn't really pan out. And then I got back to him with last year, 2019, I started writing. Sorry, I keep getting a text. When I had been writing a lot, I kind of had gotten re-inspired, and we basically sat down and in a couple of days hashed out this record. Pounded out out of the 20 songs I had written, which ones we were going to record.
Very cool. So the name of the album is called An Unwelcome Moment of Clarity.
Right.
Which probably means something different now than it did when you came up with it. So tell me
exactly. About that. Yeah. At the time, it's a line from the last song in the album. The album for me was about, like self-discovery and reinventing yourself and pushing away, any kind of fear or doubt, and trying to be as creative as possible. But the inside joke is that any revelations I had about myself were unwelcome. And so
well, I'm sure you'll get past that.
Yeah, I hope so.
Oh man. So the songs were written, you said last year?
Yeah, these are written in like summer of 2019.
Right.
We put them together, and then we got together late 2019. Started working on the production, hashing them out, and then we went to it's actually the bass player from Oingo Boingo. His name is John Avila, and
Right.
he's got a great little studio here in town, and it was Mitch's idea to go there, and we asked him to play bass on it, and it was great. He's an amazing bass player. He brought a lot to the record.
Oh, cool.
And we tracked in 2 days at his studio, everything, the three of us.
So in addition to him, who else is playing on the record with you?
Me, Mitch Marine, he's the drummer for Dwight Yoakam. And he's a Texas guy. He was actually in the Tomorrow People, the band that I was on with Geffen.
Right.
So I've known him forever, and he's the one who also co-produced the record with me.
Yeah, so you got
that's it.
Dwight Yoakam on one side and Oingo Boingo on the other.
Right, and
I guess
Toadies Toadies right down the middle. So
there you go. So when you thought about what you wanted this record to sound like, what went through your head?
Well, I've always been more interested in like, I guess you'd call it roots music. I'm interested in all kinds of music. I mean,
right.
But when I was doing this, there's an axiom that it's harder to be simple than it is to be complicated, and I don't know that that's necessarily true. My initial concept for the album was to try to use more like roots chord structure, roots rocky kind of chord structures, and almost like cliches, and try to come up with new ways to make them interesting.
Right.
To me, at least, if it was interesting to me, I would hope it would be interesting to other people.
Gotcha.
That was sort of the concept of the album musically, as far as that was concerned.
So you were raised in Texas, though, right?
Yeah, I was raised all over. My family were nomads, but my mother was from Montreal. My dad was from Miami. And they love the South. They love the Southeast, the Southwest, and so we moved like all over the place. Every year we moved, but mostly Florida and Texas. Yeah.
Yeah, because you can hear that Texas kind of coming through everything that you're doing, especially in the guitar.
Yeah, definitely musically. I mean, I call it, I jumped off ship in the 80s. My parents kept moving. I was 18. I was like, bye. They kept going.
I like that.
I had already gone to 4 different high schools in 4 years, and I was like, I'm done moving. You guys take off. And they took off to South Carolina and Florida.
Usually it goes the other way around. The parents stay and the 18-year-old bugs out.
Right. Yeah, I mean, when I hear those, when I hear like old Merle Haggard songs, like about Ramblin' Man and stuff, like, I was like, yeah, this guy's singing about my dad.
Right.
He was that kind of guy, just always moving, always on the road. Yeah, I jumped off ship when I was 18 in Texas, and like the musical culture there really, well, we had lived in Houston and everything before that. The William Whalen era of country music was a really big deal for me. Oh yeah, that was huge. And then that there was a really great music scene in Dallas at that time. It was like the Deep Ellum scene.
Yeah.
And I became fully immersed in that right around the time I left high school.
Great, so, great. That's good stuff to be immersed in, that's for sure.
Yeah, it was all like, Reverend Horton Heat and Edie Brickell was real big around that time. Like just a ton of local acts. That was a really creative time, and everybody was in everybody else's band, and everybody knew each other. And, we didn't have the internet to waste our time with. We just hung out downtown and tried to make music. And,
cool.
And that was the scene that I kind of grew up in.
Cool. So let's just touch on a couple of the songs on the record while we're here. It opens up with a song called "If You Still Believe," and
right.
From what I read, it's kind of your favorite on the record. And is there an accordion in there as well?
That's a really fun one. Because it's completely acoustic. There's an acoustic stand-up bass. I only play acoustic guitar on it, and the keyboard pad sound is actually this children's toy. It's called a melodica. It's made of plastic. My kid had one, and so I grabbed it and started playing on it, and what I discovered is that it actually doesn't play in tune. So I played it into the computer, into Pro Tools, and I had to use the computer to pitch it up into
right.
A440 standard tuning for what I was at. But it's really cool because you control it with your breath. You breathe into it and then play the little keys, and
right.
so you can get these kind of cool swells. I'm like a one finger keyboard player, maybe two fingers every once in a while. So it was perfect for me, and it ended up really fitting the song. So I was pretty happy with that.
Very cool, very cool. And another one I wanted to talk about was 20 Yards, and it seems like there might be some kind of story behind that one. So I don't know if you can tell me what's going on.
Yeah,
there.
I was actually I was just trying to write a story song, which is kind of a new thing for me, and that actually is another one where John played stand-up bass. Those are the two songs that he played stand-up bass, and that one's all acoustic as well. And
right.
he had a while we were tracking it, Mitch asked him. He said, "Hey, you got a gut string acoustic?" And he was like, "Yeah." And he's got one. He had one that he had since he was 13 years old. It looked kind of like Willie Nelson's Trigger guitar. I mean, it was all torn to shreds. And I played, and so we did the tracking, and I played it on that track, and gave it back to him. And I haven't played a gut string acoustic since, but I guess I need to get one because it turned out great. It was really fun. But yeah, I just wanted to be like a tongue-in-cheek, fun story song.
Right.
There's nothing real serious there.
And speaking of guitar playing, on the Darkness, there's some pretty cool guitar there. Is that? I assume that's you.
Yeah, I play all the guitars on the record, and yeah, that one was one that I needed another track to show Mitch because he was coming over. But I got this new amp, and I was like, I wonder what it would sound like if I just put everything on 10, including the reverb. And so that's like reverb on 10, tremolo on 10, and then the song just came out, and I wrote it in like 15 minutes.
Yeah, I think there are some people who think you can't have enough reverb, and I might be one of them. So
yeah, well, that's one of those things where like a sound can inspire you, and that's what happened.
Yeah, and just after that, there's a song called "Little White Lines," which also has some pretty tasty guitar playing going on there. But is that written to somebody, about somebody?
Yeah, you could say that that one might be like somewhat autobiographical. But yeah, that as far as the guitar parts, that was me like trying to do my Pete Anderson impersonation with my Telecaster, and I got as close as I could, but probably most people would say close no cigar. But
and I was curious, when I was listening to the record as a whole, the band that kind of came to my mind was an old band from I think they might be still around, Jason and the Scorchers. Do you remember those guys?
I remember those guys. Yeah, I couldn't recall a song off the top of my head, but yeah, that's a pretty cool comparison. Yeah.
Right.
I've gotten some interesting comparisons, which is always funny to me because people will say like, "Oh, this sounds like the Beatles or something." I'm like, "Oh, you mean like the most successful touring and recording act of all time?" Sure. I roll my eyes at some of that stuff, but or somebody said the second song, "To Your Side," sounded like a Lost Birds track, and I was like, "Wow, okay."
Well, you can't go wrong there.
I can't. Yeah, I know. I've never really I don't even know how to play any birds. So.
Well, it's probably because on that one you got a lot of background vocals and harmonies and stuff.
Right. Yeah.
Who's doing all that stuff?
The plan was to, I live in LA. There's tons of great musicians and we have tons of friends that are great singers and great players. And the plan was to like bring all those people in and do the record. But by the time I'd finished tracking and editing the tracks and getting them ready for overdubs, the coronavirus had hit. So I ended up doing everything myself. Although the only person singing on the record is me.
Right.
And the only person playing guitar on it is me. Mitch and John played bass and drums, but actually on To Your Side, a friend of mine from Dallas mixed that song, and he added some B3 organ to it.
Oh yeah,
which ended up like really lifting the song. His name is Paul Williamson. He was in a band called Tablet that was signed in the 90s.
I'm familiar with the B3. I used to work with a guy named Bill Doggett who played the Hammond B3. It was a gigantic thing. We had to move it around all the time.
Right.
But
now it's just a little app on the that was just a little app on Pro Tools.
You had the Leslie speakers and the whole bit going on. It was amazing.
Oh wow, yeah, that's a lot to carry around. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, that's kind of I'm kind of a minimalist, so I like to keep my stuff small. I have a very small guitar collection, small amp collection, and you know, like I'll see if like my kid's got a toy he's playing with it. Oh, I'll grab that.
Yeah, well, it's probably a good idea to not have a lot of stuff in case you have to make a quick exit somewhere, because the way things are these days, you never know.
Yeah, it's true. We're the earthquakes and the fires we have here. Yeah, so you never know what's gonna happen.
And you mentioned, you kind of alluded to the fact with your getting a string guitar that you probably haven't played live yet much, but you probably will be. So what are you thinking about?
I'm hoping that maybe like this time next year. I don't know how long this is going to last. I don't know what's going on. You know, nobody knows. If you knew, you'd be a millionaire. What the outcome is, nobody knows. But hopefully things will turn around soon. I would love to get out and start playing. I mean, and maybe even touring if that's the case. But you know, the fact that I'm here and I've got a lot of time, I'm doing a lot of writing. I've written about 20, 25 songs in the last
make the best of it.
Year. Yeah, and I got 2 different projects I'm working on. One is going to be one is going to be somewhat similar to the first album. And the second one would be more of a departure. So, working on those in tandem.
Sounds exciting.
Yeah, it'll be fun. I'm really excited about it.
Excellent. Yeah, they thought we thought we had it sorted down here, and there was going to be like a connection with the folks in Australia, and we can go back and forth and get musicians and bands playing again. And then it all went down the toilet. So you just never, you can't plan on anything these days.
I'm a fan of a lot of the stuff that came out of New Zealand in the 80s and 90s, the Chills and the Clean, and there was a bunch of bands. There was a whole label down there, like Flying Nun. Was that what it's called?
That's the one. Yep.
Yeah, I used to like, well, when I was growing up, and I was mostly in Fort Worth and then in Dallas, and we could get our hands on like a Melody Maker and an Enemy or something like that. It would be like 3 or 4 months old. And then there was one record store in town, Bill's Records, where we could go and we could order, like you could order 45s of records. We'd have to order them on Sound Unseen. And I remember I still have a couple of those Chills records that I ordered and that came out around that time, just from the articles that I'd read and those magazines, and fell in love with that band.
Yeah.
And
the great thing about living on an island like this, where all these old bands they're all still stuck on the island together, and they all eventually reunite and tour and make new records.
Oh, wow. That's cool. Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. Straight Jacket Fits. And there's a bunch of great stuff that came out around that time. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's awesome. I've never been to New Zealand. I would love to go sometime.
Come on down. Now. The water's fine.
Are people actually playing out? Are the bands playing right now? Are they having concerts?
Today is tomorrow. We're back to level 1, which means that there will be live music. So,
oh wow, that's great. That's really great.
So we were allowed to have like 100 people. In fact, this past Sunday we had a band up here playing. We squeezed in about 80 people, and it was fantastic. And it was just like you realize how much you need it. How
much you missed it. Yeah.
So well, I'm going to be out and about this weekend.
Oh, that's great. Well, the dream for me is to get out and play this stuff live, which I really want to do. But hopefully it'll be soon.
Cool. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to me in the meantime. Good luck with the record. It's out, on the 9th, a couple of days. So it's very exciting.
All right. Thank you, Marty.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.